We're Team 9.
Just let me know when you guys are ready.
We're ready.
You ready? Great. Take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Addie and Bar, and here's the name of all of our other group members who just passed you out a little URL slip. We're going to ask at this point that you all enter that URL into your computers, just to follow along with our presentation. Did you all receive the slip at this point? Oh, whoever, yes. Okay. So we're just going to ask that you click along and to supplement your learning experience. Now, as for our agenda for the day, we're going to go through the history of the Lean Startup Method. We're going to go through the product and non-product application of the Lean Startup Method, and then finally talk about the implications for future innovation using the Lean Startup Method. Hence our title of our presentation, the Lean Startup Method.
So first we want to talk about why the Lean Startup Method is even important. Why do we need a method for innovation? And I guess the short answer is that innovation is hard. So can you guys just give me some of the reasons why innovating is difficult, or why you kind of like run into setbacks when you're trying to innovate, create a new product, create a new service?
There's really no standard method of doing it. It's a very creative process.
Anything else?
Just if something's cool doesn't mean it's marketable.
Good. So we kind of came up with 3 questions that we thought encompassed why innovation is so difficult. One of them is, does our product work? So like you said, you might have a really cool idea, but it might not actually be feasible in terms of creating a product. How consumers actually respond to the product. So I think all my ideas are awesome, but it might not be that customers or consumers actually like it. It might not have a consumer base. And then how do we develop a product in a cost and time-effective manner? So if I like my idea and you like my idea, it still might not be cost-effective to do it.
So I want you all to consider this example. It's 1999, most of you are about 8 or 10 years old, but you're geniuses and you want to create a startup company, an online shoe company. So what is the best way to go about setting this up? What do you do? Like, what's the best path? So on one hand, you can obtain a shoe inventory, you can create a database of footwear, you can build a full service website, and then you can sell the shoes to your customers. Or you can consider a second path.
So here we have path 2. Another option that you have is to go around to the stores and take pictures of the cool shoes, put them on your website with the listed prices, whatever they might be in the stores, and then if anybody orders a shoe through your website, you go to the stores, you buy them, and you sell them to the consumer. And then you see, was there a lot of demand? If there isn't, figure out why and try again. So kind of looking at path 1 and path 2, if you were just starting this new shoe website, who would pick path 1? Raise your hand. I see some. Okay. And how about path 2? All right. So it seems like there's a bit of an overwhelming majority for path 2, and that's actually how Zappos, which you probably know as the largest online shoe retailer in the world, started by using this path 2 approach.
So meet Eric. He actually coined the process that helps Zappos, which is called the Lean Startup Method. And he did this through initially failing at his first startup. It was in the mid-90s, he created a startup called Catalyst Recruiting, which is a lot like LinkedIn, where it was an online platform to connect university students with potential employers. He spent about 5 years doing research and development, had about $40 million in financing, and had over 200 employees at this point before his final product launch about 5 years later in 2003. Unfortunately, his product failed, and he couldn't exactly figure it out. But after doing a lot of retrospective thinking and work and analyzing, he realized that he spent so much time working on the initial product launch that he never really considered customer feedback. And so he thought, I don't want any other entrepreneurs to feel like me. Let me come up with an awesome theory that can help them avoid this whole process or the mistakes that he made. So here is a cycle that we have here that Bar will explain.
Yeah, so the Lean Startup Method cycle, if you look, you start off with an idea, and then you build kind of an initial platform or product and launch it into the market. Once you've launched it into the market, you take back the data from the customers as your measurement, and you learn from this data. and then you go back to the drawing board and you see what can I learn from this data, what new ideas can I generate from this data, and you keep going through this cycle over and over again until you end up with a product that you're satisfied with. So just to help you better understand what the model does, it's important to kind of understand some definitions. So one of them is minimum viable product, or MVP. And the definition of MVP is a version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least effort. So what we just saw in Zappos is a really good example of this. They were able to launch a product that was not costly at all because they didn't buy any shoe inventory. And without very much effort, they were able to get a lot of information about the consumers. Who is actually going to buy from a shoe website? Is this a good idea? So this basically allows, it's a cool concept because it allows entrepreneurs to test business hypotheses and begin the learning process really early before they put in a lot of time and a lot of cost into their projects. Some other ideas are continuous deployment. So continuous deployment is this idea that you're constantly changing your product. So for example, you can do this by updating your code and releasing new code and seeing how customers interact with it. So Facebook is like a system that does a lot of changing, sees how what the customer feedback is. Split testing is another interesting way to approach the market. So when you split test, you have two different products, A and B, and you give them to two different consumer groups. You kind of see how the consumers react, and if group A seems to like the product more than group B, if your A product is better than your B product, then you'll proceed with your A product. And you can have more than two products in split testing. And then actionable metrics, that's kind of the measurements that you take that lead to informed business decisions. So it's kind of your takeaway from when you launch the product into the market that has to do with the key drivers of business, and then pivot. So this is, if you launch the product and you see that maybe a small facet of your website is doing very, very well, maybe it's not what you were initially focused on, you might want to pivot your direction. So you might not know this, but Groupon actually started as an activism platform, and as a method to, I guess, gain activist support, they happened to have a pizza coupon on there, and they saw that their activism platform wasn't doing so well, but their pizza coupon really, really was, and they realized that this was a better way to redirect the company. So they kind of ditched the old idea, did this 180-degree spin, and from getting this customer feedback, we're able to create Groupon that we all know and love today.
So just to summarize all of that in like 2 sentences, what the Lean Startup Method is, it's a scientific approach as a business method to help startups gain customer feedback to reach a desired end for their product or services. So that means that along the way, they're getting customer input through the development cycle so that they can create products that meet consumer demand without heavy upfront costs. As you all know, with any startup, it takes a lot of time to spend in research and development costs, so that's just the way to avoid it. And so thus those are the benefits. It's quick and cheap. And by quick and cheap, you can eliminate all those costs of 5 years of research development that Eric Rice ended up not wasting, was spending a lot of time doing. The second thing is that it's adaptable. If you create a lot of prototypes that are really cheap and easy to make, you can easily throw them out, create new ones. That's awesome. Third thing is that you have measurable results that are very meaningful. So if I can put 2 different products into the market and actively test which one is giving me better results, I can then use that information to redevelop new products or to go with the product that's just doing the best. So it's just a really active way to include consumers.
So even though there are clearly a lot of benefits, there are some setbacks and criticisms to this method. One is that it can be a slow process to reach the final product, but we actually argue that the iterations are fast, and they're likely faster than building from the ground up, as we saw with Eric's example. Another kind of setback is that you're starting without a lot of structure, and your initial design could take a 180-degree turn, so that could be uncomfortable for some entrepreneurs. But it's better than using all your capital to build an unsuccessful product. So I think Groupon is a good example of this. They made a 180-degree turn, but it was a very positive 180-degree turn. And it's also difficult to predict costs. If you're starting at the starting point, you don't really know where you're going to end up. You might not know how much it's going to cost in the end, but that's okay because you're reducing the wasteful spending by using customer feedback to kind of eliminate the things that are not really needed. And there are several other, we talked about Zappos in detail, there are several other products that you might know of or use that use the Lean Startup Method. And there are also some non-product applications, which I'm going to talk about a little more.
Great, so now I want you all to participate. So it's 2008 and you are campaign managers for Obama's campaign. Now you have to basically raise money online, but you don't really know the best way to do it. So we have two different examples of layouts that the campaign managers help to design to figure out which would be the most effective way to collect donations. So I personally would have selected this one because Obama's like really sexy and like I would totally choose that. But Bar, what would you choose?
I'd say probably the family one, because if you can take care of a family, I think you can take care of the country.
Right. So unfortunately, the two of us alone are not going to come up with the hundreds of millions of dollars needed to fund a campaign. So it doesn't really matter what we think. It matters what you think. So we're going to ask you, how many of you would select this this layout and respond to this layout more so than the other? Okay. Overwhelming. And the second layout? Okay. Okay. So what was really cool was that in 2008, the campaign manager deployed a number of different web layouts and designs to get that feedback to see how donors responded. And what they found, what they initially predicted was that a video of Obama speaking at a rally would help improve donations because it's like him being active and him getting his message out there. But they actually found that this photo was able to help them raise 40% more donations than the video photo, than that photo, than all of the website layouts that they deployed. So that 40% additional donations means a lot for a campaign. With the average donation about $20, that equaled about $60 million in extra donations. So this process is actually profitable, so that's good to know.
And actually, if you guys have been using your links, you were A/B tested.
So at the beginning of the class, we passed out slips of paper with URLs to all of you. What you may have noticed now is that each of the slips of paper were actually different. We split you up into 4 experimental pools and gave you presentations that had slight variations on each of the presentations. We wanted to use the A/B testing principle of the lean startup method to see how we could influence you to click on a particular link just by modifying the context around the actual link. So if we look at the data, if you guys all go to the second slide with the Zappos button and a picture of Tunisia, you'll see that those of you who were in pool 2 actually clicked through the link at a higher rate than everybody else. What varied on the Zappos slide was the actual text within the buttons. Pool 2 had the words "find out more," and pool 1 said "learn more," and there were other things such as "wow, that's really cool, I want to find out more about that." If we look at slide 3, which is the Lean Startup, the entire lecture series on the Lean Startup, Pool 2 once again performed better than everyone else. What was modified on slide 3 was actually the entire body of the slide, what we put in the text to see how we could influence you that way. If we look at slide 4, which was about Obama, we modified the coloring and the size of the text to see how that would change. And in this case, Pool 3 performed better. If you look at the data for the Air Grease slide, everything was about the same. This was a control slide to see if we gave you guys all the same variables, would you guys still click through at the same rate? And it seems that the data performed relatively based on what we expected.
So thank you for being our participants without your consent. We really appreciate it. Also, thanks for listening to our presentation. We hope that you understand how powerful the Lean Startup method is. We talked about kind of like the barriers to innovation at the beginning of the lecture, and how the Lean Startup method addresses so many of these by ensuring that at the end you do have a functional product. You do have a consumer base because you're using the customers throughout your innovative process and kind of a scientific method of seeing really what the best approach, the best service, the best final product is.
Yeah, and so the really cool thing is that it just gives way to new possibilities across different industries and fields. I mean, if you consider what we just did to you in this in-class example, imagine how that can improve the quality of your lectures. Like, how many of you go to lectures where you really appreciate the content and the material, but you really just hate the way it's delivered? But you have to wait until Q-scores come out to kind of bash the lecturer. So how about now, the lecturer can come up with different ways to give you that information so that you can grade them, so that those Q-scores can actively help you while you're still in class. And we just encourage you to think of other ways that you can use the Lean Startup method to improve your quality of life, whatever products that you might develop, because you're all geniuses. And thank you very much.